Hello and welcome. I would like, first of all, to thank the American Acupuncture Council to put up this lecture. And today I will focus on what I think is one of the most emerging problems that we see, and we also very clearly see it in the clinic, is actually the suffering on the mind level. The strength of Chinese medicine that we see a three-dimensional picture of body, mind, and spirit. So obviously this challenging time presents challenges to the body, but the real one, which will also stay very long time with us, is the challenges to the mind and to the spirit. And from my clinical experience, Chinese medicine is one of the best medicine on earth to make change on this level and to bring back this connection of mind and spirit. So this lecture will be focused on it, and will focus on the diagnosis and the treatment on that level. So let's start with the slides first. If we look, both anxiety and depression are Western medical terms, not Chinese medicine. And I would like to start and kind of dive into the Chinese medicine dynamic, maybe by a quote of Professor Yuval Harari, who said that the best defense humans have against pathogen is not isolation, is information. And it's an interesting quote because more and more people around the globe are going into isolation. And there is more and more lack of communication and trust with the people who should provide us the dynamics and the safety and the safe instructions. And I think this quote, more than anything else, kind of points to something very important about human life. Because when we are talking about information, and it is true, when you are informed with something, you can take it much more easy. You know, even to jump from a certain place, if somebody explains you how safe it is, gives you all the safety measurements, you will jump, you know, if it's not very high. If not, you will be afraid that something will happen. And the reason that we can explain in Chinese medicine why it is so important, because thinking comes from the yi, from the earth. It's another forms of digestion. So if we look at thinking and earth, we can understand the same way as we digest food, we digest ideas. And earth and the yi is controlling the water, the fears. So when you understand something, you can control your fears, and you can control your inner understanding, and inner wisdom brings you to the place where you can cope with everything. If the water is not controlled, if the fears are getting too big, then there is an anxiety. Then there is this fear that something will happen or something not good will happen. So this is just one part of the information part. So the more we are informed, the more we can understand deeper something, the more we can control the fear and the anxiety. But isolation is actually the deepest problem, because as humans, we should be in touch with other humans. We should communicate with other humans. For us, the fire is the most important part of human life, and the ability to communicate, to love, to share, and to have inner joy is the core essence of being a human. And this, as we know, also the fire element is connected to the Shen, and this is where we house the Shen, and this is how we connect to something higher or bigger, which guides us. So the relationship of fire and water, if there is like too much fear, and if there is isolation, you can see that there is also some disconnections from one inner self. And treatment eventually will go to that level. And it's not just the mind and the body is connected, and the immune system is also very much related on the mind. And already in Suen 72, it clearly says, and it's an amazing quote, I mean, the more we go to the classic, the more we can appreciate the depth of Chinese medicine. The safe Zeng Qi, the upright Qi, the immune system, remains strong, then Xia Qi, bad Qi, cannot invade the body. Zeng Qi must be weak when invasion of Xia Qi takes place. And we know today, by the way, they say almost 70% of people who will be infected by a virus, they will not be sick. And if there is an inner invasion of something, it means that something in the Zheng Qi, in the upright Qi of the body, was not working properly. And when we go deeper into immunity, and I gave another talk here about immunity, or if you want to hear more, there's lectures that I give about immunity. Immune system is actually made of 3 layers of Shen Qi, which we are discussing now, and we are seeing the relationship between the health of the mind and our immune health. Also in Western medicine, there is a clear relationship between the emotions and between the psychological state and immunological state. There is psychoimmunological relationship, which is clearly also seen even in biomarkers. But when we look at the immune system, we look at Shen Qi, we look at Wei Qi, and Jing Qi. And when we want to have a good immunity, we want to have all of them connected. But definitely the Shen Qi is the strongest, and this is what Suen 72 actually tells us. In an interesting way, when I was kind of diving into explaining how anxiety and depression works in the body, I called it Clearing the Cloud series. And this cloud is a kind of imaginary cloud, but I think it kind of helps us to understand the location of the problem if somebody has anxiety or depression. And if we do a proper acupuncture treatment, and that's sometimes what I heard from patients, it's like you clear the cloud from me. I came in a rainy day where everything was gray, and I came out and it feels sunny and I see everything and I'm present. So this cloud is, to me, a kind of metaphor to something that separates men from heaven. And when we want to understand clearly what it means, depression and anxiety in Chinese medical terms, is talking about this communication of men and heaven. Communication on this level is disrupted. Because when you feel connected, doesn't matter whatever happens around it, you can express and feel joy. When there is a disconnection on that level, that's when a mental state is set in, like a depression, anxiety, or any other mental disease. So this kind of helps to show the location of heaven, and heaven and Shen are located in the same territory. And there is different points in the body, which I will talk about some of them, but if you look like the windows of heaven points or points that have the name Shen in them, we will use 2 of them in this presentation. They explain why this point, why they have the name, and why they're so effective to connect again men and heaven. And once this connection happens, then there is inner healing, because eventually we allow the person to heal themselves. I mean, the acupuncture needles is just a vehicle to allow this inner healing. So after treatment, this should be the situation when men and heaven are connected, when the heart is connected to something which is greater than us. It's not on a conscious level, it's just we feel we are at the right place as human. And when we are disconnected, we feel alone and separated. And this is like the key questions and words that we see when there is a mental disease or when we even look at the patient. And when we talk about anxiety as depression, as I said, it's a very Western medical terms. And we have to understand that especially psychiatry is an observational medicine. I mean, you can't take the blood and say to somebody, you have a depression. So it's more a list of symptoms, and there's DCM-5, like a list of symptoms, and it's updated every time. If you have a number of symptoms from this list going over 2 weeks, you have depression. If you have this and this symptoms, you have anxiety. So Western medicine, and especially psychiatry, is more looking at the behavioral disorders, and it's quite difficult to define. In Chinese medicine, to me, we are much closer to the human experience because we are looking at this 3-dimensional model, and we put the Shen and mind and emotion, and we define differently what will be called anxiety and depression by Western medicine. I gave a whole course just on taking the DSM-5 and breaking it up in Chinese medicine and called it the 5 types of depression, because you can really see all the symptoms, how they are fitting the Chinese medicine model, because we are coming from an observational model. We observe the patient. Our way we try to understand the world and the patient is immediately three-dimensional in his observation. It takes a minute to look at a patient and to know his inner state. And in psychiatry, obviously it's close, but it's more going into a whole list of symptoms. List me the symptoms you have, and then we can compare it to the list we have, and then we define your condition. So Chinese medicine is much more, I think, accurate in the way it understands and can treat deeper, probably, and create even a deep healing. So after a treatment, there is back this connection between heaven and earth. Oh, sorry, I just went the wrong way. Here we are. So just to look a little bit about the reason we'll have anxiety and depression. From Chinese medicine, it's when there is a good relationship of man and heaven. The mind is awake and aware and present. And humans feel comfortable between heaven and earth. This is the human position. So when you are connected, you just feel comfortable. You just feel alive. You just feel not alone. And you feel that you are present. So when there is anxiety or depression, something in this physiological state is disrupted. As I showed, there is some disconnection on that level. Overall, I'm briefly presenting the three models. When we look at depression, to me, it's very easy to look at 5 types of depression. We won't go into all of them. When we look at anxiety, we're more looking at the relationship of fire and water, which is disrupted. And as you remember, we talked about the earth, about thinking, and also about centering. We talk about fire, about communication and joy, and about water of fear and jing. And this axis, this is actually the sanity axis, is the most important when we're talking about anxiety. Something is disrupted in this axis. When we'll talk about stress and conflict, we can link the model of 7 emotion and the whole movement of qi in the body, and then we'll use a different set of points. Also looking at the psychiatric definition for depression, if you look at it from a Chinese point of view, it says depression causes a feeling of sadness and or loss of interest in activities one enjoyed. When we're talking about once enjoyed, once the Shen was connected to the heart and you can have joy. And then if we go on, we can see the same. If it can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems and can decrease a person's ability to function at work and at home. And then if you look slowly at the list, you're welcome to open DSM-5, you will see how they are connected to the 5 types of Shen and this non-presence of Shen, that you can't anymore be engaged in things that you were engaged before. So this is like a key idea behind it. So when we look at the TCM reflection of this depression definition, we see this interest in activity once enjoy. Again, you will see that the heart is not connected, so you can't enjoy life. If we look at anxiety, it's actually more interesting and much easier to explain. Anxiety is not the same as fear. And this is, again, we're looking at Western medicine, but because we are using the term anxiety, I think it will help us to understand it better. So anxiety is not the same as fear, which is a response to a real and immediate threat. In anxiety, it involves an expression of like a future threat. There is all the time the fear that something will happen or something may happen. So you feel this uneasiness constantly, and there is no threat at the moment. The threat is a future threat, and a lot of time imaginary threat. And even if it's real, it's nothing that is happening here and now. I'm afraid that something will happen in the future. If I look at it about this definition from a Chinese point of view, you can see that there is a very interesting relationship between the heart and the kidney. And a very interesting relationship, if you look at it from a personal perspective, when the heart is connected and the relationship of heart and kidneys are good, then there is trust. The heart provides trust, and the kidney provides lack of fear or feeling comfortable on earth with your own gene, your own personality. So if you have no fear, you have trust. When you have fear, you lose something in this basic trust in being alive and trust in the world. So this is the local perspective. If we go to a higher perspective, we see that we look at the three-dimensional picture that man is between heaven and earth, so that we have a greater trust in everything around us. We have a greater trust that even if we live at challenging time, there is maybe some reason for it. We can trust it. We can wait and see how nature resolves itself. It's not all about man. It's about man living between heaven and earth. So this trust is in a bigger and universal perspective, not just a personal one. And that's actually when we are balanced, we have a sense of something bigger than us. And I want to give a case to illustrate how we are treating anxiety. And this is a man that just came recently, although he's a very kind of been patient of mine years ago. He just returned back. And especially because he had suddenly this fast heart rate. He had palpitations, and lastly, in the last few weeks, very severe insomnia. And this palpitation brought him to, it's like a panic attack. He's afraid he has heart attack. He went to the hospital, to the ER a few times. And this is a classic panic attack and anxiety, and I have many patients like this. And this number of them is growing and growing, especially now. So when I try to explain in a deeper way what's going on in him, when your heart is not well connected, then you lose this trust. So the fears is setting in, constant fear. I have a heart attack. My heart is failing on me. Something is wrong with my heart. So there is all the time this fear there's no real dangers. He had his heart checked in the ER. He has this direct line, to this company that can check even over the phone. Everybody's telling you your heart is okay, you don't have heart problem. But inside, there's a constant fear from a future threat. My heart will fail on me. A beautiful description was of the heart, I heard it once, is the heart beats, is like a drum beating, telling all the other organs everything is safe. There's a constant beat, which gives you this kind of feeling of trust and safety. When the heart goes off beat or it's too fast, there is this sense of anxiety. By the way, it's also the physical affects the mind. People after heart attacks also have anxiety, or people who have problems in heart rhythm will develop like anxiety as the body affects the mind. In his case, it was the mind affecting the body. So it was very clear that, again, he has this lack of trust in his health. And if we look at the healing, and that's what I expect, that suddenly there is no fear. Suddenly there is no danger. And the points I used with him in order to achieve this deep healing were actually very simple but deep point, and we'll go and discuss them. So we're going back to this personal experience. So we use heart 7, which is a fire point, but it's also an earth point. So if you remember, if we look at fire, earth, water, so heart 7, although we use it very often, if you go and understand the dynamic of this point, you can see how effective it is. And then kidney 25, which is called spirit storehouse or Shen Chang. And let's go deeper into these points. By the way, this is a beautiful picture. There is a project I'm doing with two colleagues of mine, Bartosz Kamieniecki from Poland and Rani Eyal from Israel. It's called Gates of Life. And we have a painter from Poland, Martina Janki, who is painting all the meridians. This is the painting of a meridian, of the kidney meridian. And I'm highlighting the points. If you see the highest of this mountain, which is the chest area. So we have kidney 23, 24, 25, all relating to the Shen. By the way, it's the most interesting kidneys, all the meridians, but the kidney can easily explain this dynamic of fire and water. It's the only meridian that starts on earth, on the bottom of the foot, and ends up in the heart. It's to do with our deepest transformation of Jing into Shen. So again, fire and water is the essence of our life. And if you look at the kidney 25, especially, this is like the drawing of the points itself. So, you can see the storehouse and the Shen. We are trying to illustrate, the book we are working is deep into the dynamic of the points, but The pictures are also bringing beauty and allowing to remember better the points and points action. So Shen, you know it's to do with the spirit, as Chang is a storage. And a storage is both a place that you keep inside, but it's also a treasury, a place where you keep something vital. So it's where you store the spirit. So it refers to a place where you can take out of storage, but also it's a place where when you need, you take from it, but if it's empty, you have no storage. So both aspects of storage are relevant when we treat this point. So this is like I'm saying, when there is fear stored inside, we can use this point to unlock this fear, especially actually even fear from early childhood. And many patients who experience anxiety now, it's already deep in their early childhood. Or it's a place where you can take from storage when the person is very deficient after long illness, very weak and has anxiety because of the Jing deficiency. So this point works in both aspects. So again, it connects to this original source that can help you to sustain you through difficult time. This is where you're calling on the spirit after you're exhausted and weak. And this is one of the points that has a very strong relationship between the Jing exhaustion and Shen exhaustion. So again, it's a Shaoyin treating the kidney and heart. So it treats anxiety from unknown reason, like in this case, and supports this Jing and heart connection. I also treat acupuncture in a positive way. Remember, once I treated a patient who, again, in the past had a lot of anxieties, and now he's coming after a while, but he's already fine. So it's more, like a prevention treatment. So I used this point, and he asked me, what do you treat me for? And I said that you live in the world and you move in the world without fears. So he looked at me and he says, this is my inner dream. And for patients who have fear and anxiety, their inner dream is to live in a world without inner fear. And this point is, again, one of the Shen points that can exactly touch that level. Oh, sorry. I'm just moving. And this is the patient. Sorry, again. This is the patient. You can see his tongue. You can see the indeficiency. This is probably also one of the reasons why I have this prenatal already anxiety. And you can see in his eyes even the fear, and that's like a normal picture taken. And here is the points, kidney 25. So I took a picture when he was with the points. And the other point that I used was heart 7, which and here again you have from our future book, the heart meridian and the heart 7 as one of the points on it. So you have all the heart channel traveling. And again, heart 1 and kidney 1 is the 2 points which are hidden. If you think about it, it's very deep. So again, we have the connection of fire and water. So this is to do with the picture and all the things you can see on the picture and that can explain the point. And the heart 7, it's called Shen Men, and Men is a door, but a door is like a passage. So you can pass from inside to outside and from outside to influence. It's one of the places we can influence the Shen and calm the Shen. It's a Yuan point and an earth point. Being an earth point, it balances, again, fire and water. It's just in the middle. Being a Yuan point, it connects to our original Qi, to our deep authenticity and the authentic art that we have. That's why this point is so special, and we can use it both in, again, in many problems, but especially in sleeping problem, memory, anxiety, exactly all the problems that he was suffering from. Another option is to go in a different way. Again, especially for a sleeping problem, you can use the Yang Qiao, like extra meridian. Yin Qiao and Yang Qiao meets in bladder 1, in the eye, and that to do with opening and closing the eye. But interestingly enough, if we do the Yang Qiao, we use bladder 62 and small intestine 3. So again, we're using bladder instead of kidney and small intestine instead of heart. So we are using the Yang co-partners of the water and fire. And this is another reason why Yang Qiao can be so effective for sleep disturbances, especially this kind of sleep. So eventually we are using the fire and water to balance the yin and the earth and heaven in man, and in a deep way to bring back the trust and to bring back this feeling of calmness and safety as human on earth. And Chinese medicine goes far more beyond treating the mind. In my understanding and in my clinical experience, it helps people to, well, it helps people for to grow inside, not just to fulfill their inner path in life, not just to treat the pathologies. And that's the idea of treatment, not just to treat the anxiety and insomnia, but makes a person more on his path and more fulfilled in his life. So, as a final note, I would say the most magical part of acupuncture is the ability to transform, to touch heaven in a patient, alleviate the suffering, and clearing the clouds and allowing healing and change. So when we use acupuncture in this respect and this type of points, magical things are happening. And to me, this is the deep nature of Chinese medicine. So I hope you enjoyed this lecture and got some idea about how to treat and how the best way to treat um, both anxiety and depression, but even beyond this, to help inner healing and health. So be well, keep safe, and help as many people as you can. Thank you very much for being with me. And again, thanks the American Acupuncture Council to putting it up. So thanks and all the best.